going to call the meeting to order. It's 4:32. Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Today is Tuesday, May 9th. I'm going to take roll, make sure that we are all here. I am here. Mrs. Miller? Here. Mr. Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Giannini?
Here.
Mr. Sherrier?
Here.
Great. All 5 of us are here. We have a quorum. Do we have any updates to the agenda? Dr. Boozer?
Yes, we do. We have a few amendments. The first amendment is to the special recognition, and it's just to amend the background to read as follows. Special recognition for the Dublin High School, Fallon Middle School, and Wells Middle School as DUSD's 3 California Gold Ribbon schools for 2016-17. Each site was recognized for a database signature practice that ties with district goals and board priorities. At Dublin High, the Gale period was a signature practice. At Wells Middle School, response to intervention, or RTI, and social emotional learning were highlighted. At Fallon Middle School was recognized for the integrated social emotional learning, and the PE program received additional honors for student activities and outstanding teacher leadership. We're also asking that consent items H9 and H10 be amended, the funding source, to move it from, to amend the funding source from 250 to Fund 210. So the 210 would be the budget source on that one, on both H9 and H10. And then for consent item 16, which deals with the revised board policy 6153, we're asking for number 7, non-district sponsored school trips. Under that section, we're adding the following information after that first paragraph. It says Cal Ed Code section 51520, subdivision A. However, staff may meet before school, after school, and during other non-duty time during the school day to meet and plan logistics with students already signed up. And then there's some citations: San Mateo City School District versus the Public Employment Relations Board, 1983, 33 Cal.3D 850, 866, then semicolon United Teachers of Los Angeles versus the Los Angeles Unified School District, 2012, 54 Cal 4th 504, 1211-1212. Also on the consent agenda, we would like to pull from consideration item number 13. And then we would also like to amend action item 1, naming of E5. And the amended background will read as follows. The purpose of this item is for the Board of Trustees to conduct the second of 2 board policy required public hearings to consider the school naming committee recommendations for the E5 campus in East Dublin. The first public hearing was conducted on April 25th, 2017. No public comments were received. The names recommended for selection by the committee are Virginia S. Bennett School, Cottonwood Creek School, and the Colina Ventosa School. Virginia S. Bennett School earned the most votes from the committee. The public may provide additional input, and the Board of Trustees may vote on the new name for the E5 campus this evening. The scheduled opening date for the campus is fall of 2018. And those are all the amendments and to the agenda.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, okay, great. That passes unanimously. Now we are going to, we have a public comment period for items in closed session. Seeing no public comment at this time, may I get a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I move we adjourn to closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourning to closed session at 4:36.
That's the longest we've ever taken to do that.
I know, I'm sorry, we had a lot of...
Yeah, I did actually have a question. Yes. I had heard
Yeah? Are you guys ready? Okay, you guys are ready? Okay. Thanks. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Tonight is Tuesday, May 9th. Welcome. We're really glad that you're here. We are reconvening to open session from closed session. May I get a motion to do so, please?
I move we reconvene from closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are reconvening to open session at 5:38. Now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. We have nothing to report out from closed session. Sorry about that. We'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Tim Leal to come up, please, and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. And now we'll have our district mission statement read by our student representative, Ms. Lisa Coe.
Our mission is to ensure that all students become lifelong learners by providing them with a rigorous and relevant education that builds resilience and prepares them for college and university or service to our country and for success in the global economy.
Great, thank you. And now we are going to move on to our special recognition. First item, special recognition, Dublin High School Chamber Choir, and I'm going to turn it over to Michelle McDonald.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Board, Superintendent Boozer, and everybody who's here tonight. I appreciate a nice turnout so that we can honor our students. Tonight, we are going to first honor the Dublin High School Chamber Choir. Dublin High School Chamber Choir won a gold medal in Division 2A at the Heritage Music Festival in Disneyland earlier this spring, and as a result have been invited to perform at the Festival of Gold at Carnegie Hall in the 2017-18 school year. So we want to say great job, and we have some certificates. In addition to our district certificates tonight, we also have certificates from Assemblywoman Catherine Baker's office. So we're going to call you guys up one by one, and we're going to do a picture. And is there anybody among the kids, any students who want to come up and say a couple words about your experience? Sarah Greer. Anybody? Oh, come on up, honey. Come on up, honey. Come on up. Go. Greer loves a microphone. We know this.
I get it from my dad. It's his fault. Going to Disneyland was a wonderful experience, and it was amazing to hear from all the other clinicians. And we also went to Grace Cathedral and performed there. And it was a great opportunity to hear from other instructors and clinicians and definitely work on our sound. And it was probably one of the best performances and experiences in choir that I've ever had. And thanks, Lopiano, for taking us there. It was amazing, and it would have been the same without you.
All right, we're going to bring our students up. We're going to give you your certificates and then ask you to come forward, and we'll take a group picture with our Board of Trustees. Caitlin Acha, thank you. Angel Delgadillo. Maya Fukuzawa. Okay. Matthew Glenn. No? Okay. Shannon Greenhouse. Sarah Greer. Christine Hagan. Kira Hunsaker. Rachel Kim. Tyler Law. Cara Pedregoza. James Perez. Asia Posey. Jonah Wendleton. Thank you. Christopher Yuan. And Michael Zapawa. All right, we're going to bring the board up and do a group picture.
carpet. Someone move this walking carpet. Someone move this walking carpet. Someone move this walking carpet. Kiss your brother, kiss your brother, kiss your brother, kiss your brother.
You don't know anything.
daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Luke, I'm your father. It is useless to resist. Come with me, my son. We will rule. Search your feelings, it is true. So you have a twin sister who only one was wise to hide. If you will not turn, then perhaps she will give in to your hate. You are mine. Bark, bark, bark away. Long, long, long time ago. Bark, bark, bark away. It's a monkey. But if I got who has to run to the princess is annoyed. This is patience, it's monsters, it's Star Wars, we love it, it's true. Coming to you, so let's go, stand in line, 'cause it's almost the time. May the force be with you all.
That was fun.
That was really wonderful, you guys. Thanks. I don't think we'll ever think of Star Wars quite the same, and we're all the better for it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to our next special recognition, Gold Ribbon Schools, and I'm going to turn it over to Michelle McDonald.
Okay, so we are thrilled in 2017 to have 3 of our secondary schools, our amazing secondary schools, recognized as California Gold Ribbon Schools. Gold Ribbon Schools are the replacement for the California Distinguished School Program that ran for many years. And so last year we were lucky to have 4 elementaries be Gold Ribbon Schools, and this year 3 of our secondary schools are Gold Ribbon Schools. So we're going to start with Dublin High School up on our screen. Come on up, Dublin. We're going to invite Principal Maureen Byrne to say a couple of words.
Thank you. Good evening. We are thrilled to be one of the Gold Ribbon Schools. We are so proud of our programs. I'd like to first introduce some of our team. We have the assistant principals, Cara Holthe, Krista Taylor, Paul Ferris, and Lenny Velez, as well as our 2 hub coordinators, Jean Josie and Kathleen McDonald. What we wrote our Gold Ribbon about was our Gale period and the 3 components to our Gale period and our college career readiness. We really feel that the freshman program we have with our freshman mentoring program and our freshman seminar really sets the tone for Dublin High School and gives students the capacity they need to be successful in future years in the Gale period. And we work very hard, and I think you guys love your Gale period, so we are really proud of the program and proud of everyone and their intense work for it. So thank you.
All right, next up, we want to honor Fallon Middle School, a gold ribbon school for the first time and not the last. Sherry Sweeney, come on up.
All right, well, we're gathering our troops here. We have quite a few people to introduce who came tonight to celebrate as well. So we'll start with assistant principals Ed Jackson and Kelly Zumo. We have our TSA, Steve Chapman, here tonight. One of our counselors, Jennifer Lidster. Our leadership teacher and activities director, Natalie Young. Our DTA co-presidents and our retiring music teacher, Lee Carpenter, and our ELD and Quest teacher, Stacy Stein. And who else did I forget? Oh, and running up here, Michelle Tomoloso and Amy Jones. Michelle is a PE teacher and our athletic director, and Amy also a PE teacher and the architect and author of our award-winning PE exemplary program. So we're very excited to be here. We wrote our primary gold ribbon application as part of our exemplary program was our integrated social and emotional learning program, and we really focused on integrating social and emotional learning across the curriculum. 3 years ago, we discovered that academics, while it's really an important focus of our school, what was really hampering some of our students from achieving at their highest levels was the need for additional social and emotional support. So we've integrated that across all content areas. School climate is an important focus for us, and we're really delighted to be recognized for our work in that area. And in addition, we won an exemplary Gold Ribbon Award for our PE and nutrition program. Our school was the only one in Alameda County to win the award, so we're particularly proud of that. And she's not here tonight. Yay! And she's not here tonight, but Terry Scharbach, our lead history teacher, also wrote an award-winning proposal for our civics education program. So we received an honorable mention for that as well. So again, it was a great year for us, and we're very excited. This is our 12th year in operation and our first time winning statewide awards. So we're very pleased and proud and thrilled to be representing Dublin. Thank you.
And it's picture time. All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Wells Middle School, our newly crowned National School of Character. In addition to the gold ribbon, Wells was named today as a National School of Character, and they were the only school in the state of California to receive the national honor. So we have lots to celebrate for Wells tonight. So I'm going to hand off to Ian Ainsworth.
Thank you. And keeping with the theme, I think it's pretty cool to see Fallon and Dublin High and Wells have similar applications for our Gold Ribbon School Award. For us, we presented our response to intervention program. Each school has its own different twist to what that actually looks like. That's made uniquely for our population of students, and I think that's been really cool to see how that's manifested across our district. So thank you to our board, to our district staff for supporting that process, and most certainly to our most amazing teachers, our custodian staff who I see out here who make it all clean and take pride in the work for our kids to be there. So we say thank you to all that, and then I would introduce my assistant principal, Jason Matlin, and some of my awesome secretaries, Kathy and Mary, and two of our amazing teachers, Robbie and Stephanie in the back, who refused to come up here.
Photo time. If you represent Wells, come on up.
How about all our alumni, all these singers that
In the back. Tighten up a little bit, everybody, please. Everybody, 1, 2, 3. I've got it. Thank you. While we're waiting for everybody to get settled again for our last recognition, the Gold Ribbon program works like this. It's alternating years. So elementary applied last year. This year it was secondary schools. Next year it will be elementary schools again, and we have every expectation that we will have more hardware come this time next year for our outstanding elementary schools. Okay.
All right, and now we're going to do our next special recognition, custodial and school nurses.
All right. We are thrilled tonight to recognize the hard work and commitment and dedication of our employees. And so we had we'll call it a bumpy march in Dublin Unified. We had an outbreak of the stomach flu. We had some TV trucks. We had a lot of hours of cleaning and re-cleaning. We had district nurses who were working like mad to make sure that our sites were clean and safe for our kids. And we wanted to say thank you because that was a long couple of weeks for everybody, and these folks put in an amazing amount of work, and we wanted to express our appreciation tonight. So we are going to do recognition, but first I'm going to ask Tim Leal to come up and talk about his crew, and then I'm going to ask Tess Johnson to come up and talk about district nurses.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tim Leal. I'm the Custodial and Operations Supervisor here at Dublin Unified. I would like to thank our Dublin custodial staff for taking the time out of their busy night to come to this school board meeting. I would also like to give a very heartfelt special thank you to all of our custodial staff for their outstanding performance in helping disinfect that stomach flu in our schools and containing the stomach flu from spreading to all of our sites. Our custodial staff disinfected all classrooms at every school site in the district. I'm very proud of the training that was utilized by the custodians. I'm also very proud of the safety, the teamwork, and professionalism that was shown under these extreme conditions with bleaching processes and the very sensitive time constraints that we were endured to keep our students and staff safe here at Dublin Unified. Dublin is truly lucky to have this group of dedicated classified employees supporting our students, staff, and community here in Dublin School District. Thank you.
Now, I don't have a written speech. However, I do want to say something, is that I am so proud of these two ladies, Kelly and Vicki. Can you please stand up and join me up here, please? We have to say we do love our nurses. One of the things that these two ladies you should know about is that they are truly student-centered, and their medical and health safety are primary and important. And the things they do over and above, they're unsung heroes because it is over and above work. I don't know if you know this or not, but they're involved in 504s and IEPs, making sure that those students, as well as all of our students, are taken care of. They go beyond and get medical help for the people and the students that need help, even the adults and families. But they are amazing, and throughout the whole bumpy road, so to speak, that we went through, they were diligent, on board, also keeping all of us in the loop regarding what they were doing. So proud of them. Congratulations. They deserve the recognition. Thank you for the opportunity to say thank you to them.
Okay. Ladies, we'll call you back up for the picture. All right. Tim, why don't you come on up and help me with this? I'm going to have you call out the names, and Board President Rouse is going to hand the certificate.
John Alexander. Thanks, John. here. Maria Eleva.
Stay up here, stay up here. We're gonna take a picture.
Come on back up, John. Anna Camacho. James Covington. Vitel De Silva. Edgar Diaz. George Garcia. Martin Garcia. Tony Goen. James Hessler. Jeff Hessler. Carol Lung. Alex Moises. Lido Montana. Maria Munoz. Carla Perez. Roxana Pineda. Ralph Rivera. Guy Rose Jr. Douglas Salguero. Eduardo Salguero. Richard York. Daniel Zamora. Robert Bachler. Dolores Rodriguez.
We'll get you. All right. All right. Yeah, 2 rows for sure.
You're gonna be in the back.
Look at you, Dan. Way to take charge.
Have Greer take it, he's taller.
I do get them all in.
We just figure you're tall enough, you can.
All right. Dan, actually get into the photo. All right. Front row duck, Sarah and company, greenhouse, Kira. Duck. Can't see the back right there. And I'll pull it in just a little bit. All right, here we go. Good job.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Should we go? Okay. All right, now we'll continue on. Thanks everyone who came for the special recognition. Now we're in the public comment period for items on the agenda or non-agenda items, and I have one speaker slip. So I'll go ahead and call the one speaker, and we will. Okay. Great. Okay. So we have two. Great. Okay. So we have two. So we're going to go in accordance with our guidelines, and we're going to have 3 minutes for each speaker. And our first speaker is Ramya Ramakrishnan, followed by Juwan Wu.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening to discuss Fallon Sports Park Phase 3. I noticed that the school board recently met with the City Council in a closed-door session to discuss this piece of property, and I'm guessing it was to discuss the possibility of building a school at this location. So I would like the board to consider this property for a high school for the following reasons. There are several sports and athletic facilities built right next door that high schoolers can use for sports and PE activities. This location would be ideal for several kids to walk to school because it's surrounded by homes. There are no safety concerns associated with this location, like there is with the Carl Zeiss location. On behalf of several members of the community, I request the board to work with our mayor and city council members to make this possible. Secondly, I want to state that a big part of the community is not happy with the Carl Zeiss location as one of the options for the second high school. Carl Zeiss is right next door to the third largest prison in our state, housing several thousand inmates. And I'm hearing from neighborhood watch group leads about their multiple encounters with released prison inmates. One person I personally know really well, who is a neighborhood watch group captain, called me last night and narrated a very scary and horrifying encounter where she was threatened very recently, and she said it was the second time she was threatened by a released inmate who was wandering around the neighborhood asking people for money. And he told her if she did not hand over the money, he warned her that he could be a rapist or a murderer. So there have been so many scary encounters and security concerns expressed by people living in close proximity to the prison. We cannot expose our children to this, no matter if they're high schoolers or middle schoolers or elementary. This is not an ideal location for a second high school. There are several other concerns with the site, namely the size. The site is less than 14 acres and cannot house 2,500 or even 2,000 kids. We cannot have a good comprehensive school built at this location. It is opposite to the newly built courthouse, which is going to make traffic really bad. Hardly anybody is going to be able to walk to this location. So for these reasons, I hope the board is not seriously looking into Carl Zeiss. And this is not just my concern, but it's something shared by several hundreds, possibly thousands of people living in East Dublin. Thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to make a point of clarification, actually. There was no meeting between the board and the city council concerning that property. I believe there might have been a misunderstanding. That was listed on the agenda for the city council for their closed session. That is not a meeting that the board attended. That was not a discussion at that time as referenced. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And now we have Juan Wu.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the second high school land choices. When it comes to choosing an optimal land for the second high school, there's some hard criteria that cannot be changed later. Well, there's other criteria that can be changed later. So location and the size of the land are the hard criteria that have to be met before considering anything else like timeline, which can be changed over time. So Zeiss has a bad location, as so close to the courthouse and the huge jail, which makes every parent worry about their kid's safety who does go to a school next door to those inmates. And the size of that land, Zeiss, is only 30 acres without any chance to extend. That means it could not serve 2,500 students as planned. So Zeiss has to be out of the choices long ago, actually, based on those two most important and hard criteria. So, however, we have a Chen property that's still a good choice and a viable choice. Even some of the board members may try to use some other soft criteria to eliminate early. So timeline is soft because there is always ways to get things done quicker and in phases. We can build things in phases to catch up with the time needed. Also, the second high school doesn't have a defined deadline anyway. According to Dr. Hankey's original wording on the deadline, it has to be completed no earlier than 2021. So that's the only time limit we have to work with. I think we can always meet that criteria, no problem. But budget constraint is another reason for eliminate this. But if so do all other things, especially the recently approved science building on the Dublin High School. It should not have been approved with $31.5 million investment at all, if you know we have the budget limits for that as well. So why wouldn't you consider Chen property more thoroughly again? And let us know how we can make it work together at the second high school. We know anything that can be achieved if you have that right desire. So, and also, please also bring the Fallen Sports Park option back to the table for discussion as second high school option, because it has a great location and extensible size. If students can use the sports field next to the Phase 3 land. Even it's a bit
I
hilly.
need you to wrap it up.
It's still good choice since we live on the hill,
I'm
and
sorry,
I know
you're
it's
out of
okay
time.
to put building on it.
I'm sorry,
So
you're
thanks
out of
for
time.
your consideration.
I'm sorry, you're out of time. Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move on to board, superintendent, staff, verbal, and written communication. We'll start with the report from the Board of Trustees, and we'll start with Ms. Coe.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Mr. Sherrier.
No report.
Mr. Giannini.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cunningham.
I will break that streak. A couple things. One, I got to attend Guys and Dolls, and that was such a treat. When I was in high school, I actually worked on Guys and Dolls, and so I loved that musical. And I was told by Mrs. Cunningham I was not allowed to sing along with the students, which was a little depressing for me, but it was great. The orchestra was great, the acting was great, the singing, everything about it was fantastic. It was a great time, and I'm looking forward to whatever we do next year. I also attended yesterday the Fallon PFC meeting. It was great. We had a great conversation about a whole bunch of different issues, and it was just good to sit down and just see what was on the minds of people. And as always, learned a lot and what was going on over at Fallon. And then I had the opportunity to attend the Mount Diablo Unified School District puts on a Career Pathways event every year. And I'm on the Concord Chamber Board, and I went as a Concord Chamber Board member. But it was just great to see what they were doing, and then looking at what we were doing, and I thought, now they're doing good, but we're doing really good. So it was just nice. They did a great job. They have a whole bunch of different pathways that we don't have. So it was nice to get some ideas and to see what other students were doing. So that's my report.
Okay, Mrs. Miller.
Okay, so I had the opportunity to attend a conference in Washington, D.C. with Dr. Boozer called Adolescent Sleep, Health, and School Start Times. It was the first time they've ever put this conference together, and every expert in the field of sleep studies and child nutrition and mental health and traffic issues, anything related to anything with sleep. You had physicians from Stanford, you had physicians from Boston, you had 37 different states were represented there, 2 different countries. It was probably the most well-run conference I have ever attended. They did not waste any time. They had everyone speak. There was a senator there from LA who's trying to get a bill passed, Senate Bill 328, to mandate start times being no earlier than 8:30 a.m. in the morning. And there's a lot of opposition to it, but I know that they're really working hard on that, and it's something that we've talked about. And a couple of the points that I wanted to just make, some of the things that we learned from that conference, and I know I'm planning to put together sort of a synthesis of all the information so that I can give it to my board members and they can really look into it so we can talk more about this bill. Because I'm going to my delegate meeting for our professional organization in 2 weeks, and I want to be prepared to speak on this bill because my professional organization is opposing it, and I disagree with their position. So it's something that we can all talk about. And I think part of the opposition, which I do agree with, is the mandate. It's like you hear the word mandate and people freak out, so I understand that. Anyway, one of the things a couple of the points that I wanted to make, I think I turned my papers around, but they talked about a lack of sleep or sleep deprivation as being a public health epidemic for students ages 16 to 24, actually. And then they talked about adolescent biology is in conflict with early start times, talked about mortality rates increased by 200% in adolescents. And most people know that the #1 cause of death for students between the ages of 16 and 18 are car accidents. And a big reason why kids have so many car accidents is because they're tired. What I did learn, like what Dan said, is that we are actually in pretty good shape in this district. We were sitting with a lot of districts whose kids literally start at 7:10 in the morning, and they're getting on a bus at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to get to school. And this is not zero period. That is without a zero period. And so I know our middle schools start at 8:30. I know our high school starts a little early, and maybe that's something that as time goes on, and we have to make changes anyway to accommodate growth and look at different components of, our practices that help students, this might be part of our conversation. So I really learned a lot, and like I said, I plan to sort of compile everything I learned into sort of a synthesis of information that I can give to anybody that wants, and there's some great materials. They gave us on a flash drive all of the presentations, which was really excellent. And then I also attended the Dublin LPFC meeting. Our board is sort of going around and visiting PFCs. We figure it's a great opportunity to communicate, answer any questions people might have about the future high school, or anything else that's on their minds. And I found it kind of enlightening because I live in that secondary world right now because my kids are older and they're in high school, to attend an elementary PFC in the library where I was the PFC president like a million years ago. So that was kind of cool. But just, I think it's really good for us, especially those of us whose kids are older, to sort of get in touch with what's on the minds of elementary school parents, because it was a lot of things that I hadn't anticipated. So, and I have some follow-up to do, and I will get back to the PFC with some of the questions I couldn't answer myself, but they had some great questions. I also got to go to a senior night for the boys lacrosse team. That was really great. I love that we do that with all of our teams, and I love that all the leadership students come out to every single one of them to root on their peers, which is really great. Also got to attend the senior banquet, and I promised that I guess what happens at senior banquet stays at senior banquet, but I will share that the staff, the high school staff, does a skit. So when you're seniors, I think, right, Sarah, it's pretty entertaining. My face hurt from laughing. And then they also had a hypnotist there, which was unbelievable, like just amazing. So really cool night for our seniors. I'm a little worried about where they're going to host it moving forward because they pretty much used every square inch of that room. So we're going to have to start looking at different venues, but really awesome. And then finally, I will just end with our DHS hockey team. Was in a playoff game. They lost with 2 minutes left. They were up. They had a horrible call by the ref. The ref even texted my son and admitted it. The other team even admitted it, but whatever. It was a good game. So DHS is not in the playoffs. It's Amador versus Cal High, and it's happening Thursday night, May 18th. I'm sure it's going to be an exciting game if you want to go. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. My report tonight, I attended a couple of open house events. I went to Valley Open House. I really like that event in part because they do a chili cook-off for the Valley Open House. And it's just super fun. They have different staff members. There's a culinary class there, as well as there was somebody who recently completed all his credits and is already, has already graduated, and he came back and made a chili as well. So it's just a really fun event. Lots of people come, a nice sense of community, and it's great to see all the really wonderful work that's going on there at Valley. Some really dedicated teachers and staff, and it's just really great to see. I also attended open house at Wells, and that was fun. That was a slightly different format this year, and I would say it had some pluses and as well as some drawbacks. But it was really neat to see everybody out in the courtyard, having a meal together. They had the food trucks, and just to see all of the teachers in one place and be able to talk to them and share also with the other families and the other parents. I attended the Gold Ribbon Award ceremony down in Santa Clara, and that was a great opportunity to honor our schools for their tremendous work, to specifically honor the staff and the teachers, as well as the administrators who have really made that happen. I had Dr. Boozer and I had a great lunch with Robbie. Every month we get together, DTA, as well as board president and superintendent. And I always look forward to those conversations and learning more ways that we can work together to work through whatever challenges we face. I also attended with Mrs. Miller an LCAP, an informal LCAP, I guess, catch-up meeting, because we had missed one of the meetings for another something. Actually, I can't recall now. But we had a chance to meet with Dr. Gonzalez as well as Walt Lewis, and they are really doing a lot of work on the LCAP. That committee, under their leadership, has really put together a really good plan, and that's something that's going to come to us in a couple of meetings, and I think you guys will be really pleased with how much thought and preparation and reaching out to the community to see what's important to everyone. I think you'll be really pleased with that. So I wanted to thank Dr. Gonzalez as well as Walt Lewis for their continued work on the LCAP. And then finally today, one last item. I attended the Rotary meeting today, and we had a guest speaker from Dublin Unified. We had Tracy Bondi, and she came and talked to us about the Everyone On Internet program. So Rotary gave a $2,000 donation to the district to assist in providing internet to families with students in our district that do not have internet. So there's a combination program, there's a refurbished laptop program, as well as providing the internet access. And so we provided, through that grant, Dublin Unified was able to provide internet access to 16 families. Most of them have multiple students in our district. And one of the things that Tracy talked about when she presented was that there's really a strong sense of community, and you think, well, 16 families, is that a lot of families? But in fact, those families have people come over, and it's actually a much broader reach than you might imagine, and that, you know, people go to where the internet is on their block and get their homework done, and it's really done some phenomenal things for our students and our families. It's a really great program. I hope that's something that continues, and that concludes my report. And now we will ask for a report from the Dublin Teachers Association, and they do not have a report. They're shaking their heads. And I have a note here that says no CSEA report. And so we will move on to Superintendent's report. Dr. Boozer.
Yes, thank you very much. As Trustee Miller stated, we went to the Adolescent Sleep Conference, and that it really was amazing, and it was wonderful to hear from students and administrators and teachers from all over the country to talk about how sleep has impacted and start times have impacted their school systems. It's definitely something that I look forward to hearing and talking more about in Dublin, and as that legislation is pending in the state of California. I also wanted to make sure, this happened actually on the last time, the day we had a meeting, but I just wanted to reiterate because we had some of the people here, and I don't recall if I mentioned it last time, so I apologize if I'm repeating, but we had our Rotary Superstar Luncheon, and it was great just to see our Classified of the Year was being honored again tonight with Rick Mills. We also had Cindy Cito, who was our Teacher of the Year, that was honored then, as well as Lydia Lottie, who was our Administrator of the Year, who also just retired and is enjoying retirement. But it's a wonderful time of the year right now because we have so many celebrations honoring our students and staff, and definitely something to look forward to in the next upcoming weeks. Those are our big activities, almost, I think, about every night. So please pay attention to your calendars, because we hope that everyone can come and honor our students and staff as we get close to the end of the school year.
All right, thank you. And now we will move on to the consent calendar. I believe we pulled item 13, is that right? It will not be considered this evening, so consent calendar minus item 13. Are there any other items that folks want pulled to discuss?
16.
16? Any others? Okay, do you want it discussed and voted on separately, or do you, yes?
Voted separately.
Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on the consent calendar, and then we'll turn it over to item 16. Okay, so we have under consideration the consent calendar minus 13 and minus 16.
I move that we approve the consent calendar minus item 13 and minus item 16.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, now let's discuss item 16, Educational Services BP 6153, school-sponsored trips. Dr. Boozer.
Thank you, Madam President. The item 16 is for consideration is the school-sponsored trips, which is a revision of a board policy 6153. We actually, for those that came in after the start of the meeting, we did make some changes to the policy actually that was posted online. So if you want to grab a copy, there are some sitting over at the table. Make sure everyone's aware of the changes that we made. They're highlighted in red if you'd like to see a copy of that. But really what this policy and the purpose behind this policy is to update the community on our school-sponsored trips and non-school-sponsored trips. And it's to really align us with changes that have occurred in Ed Code and legal requirements, as well as to make sure that we're in line with our insurance policy. I know that there's been some definite confusion around the policy, and for that, definitely I apologize. Because the purpose of this policy is really to just make sure that we're legally compliant And what our plan for implementation with the policy is to really closely meet with each school site, to meet with teachers and administrators actually together to really help to clarify what we've learned. And the reason why we brought the policy forward is that there was a lot of confusion on what forms individual schools and teachers were supposed to fill out. Different policies and practices were being followed and implemented differently across school sites. So we really wanted to provide a lot of clarity and to streamline those policies and to make sure that actually everyone has the same packet of paperwork, that it's all clear. And I know that some of the confusion around the policy and some of the concerns that have been raised, which are very valid, is some of the opportunities that our students have enjoyed for many years and our teachers have really demonstrated a lot of leadership around has been some non-school sponsored trips. And the difference really between school sponsored trips and non-school sponsored trips is a school sponsored trip is something that the district will help to financially support. It's tied, directly to a class, it's really like a integral component of the class that all students must attend, versus a non-school sponsored, which is often an enrichment activity, something that's optional, and also very often academic and tied into nature and definitely building on what they learn in school, but it's an optional part of it. It's not considered as part of the curriculum or the grade, and so it's outside. And those are usually paid for either by the parents, fundraised for by the students, sometimes sponsored by outside individuals, whether the PFCs or other organizations can sponsor those. But they're not board approved and they don't come to us and they don't have to follow all the guidelines that are required for school sponsored trips. So that way our insurance not overseeing it, so you don't have the restrictions and the limitations that are insurance policy. You don't have the limitations or restrictions also under Ed Code because it's an outside activity versus an internal activity. I know some of the concerns that we want to make sure that we really work with our staff as we implement the board policy and work on defining what our administrative regulations are called the ARs, which is really how we implement the policy and what it looks like. We want to make sure that we get a lot of feedback from our staff and teachers so that we can hear what part of the processes need to be streamlined, what's burdensome, what's confusing, what forms aren't clear, things of that nature. And also really help to make sure that we provide the support that they need in order to make sure that we continue all the great things that we've been continuing for a long time that they might be worried could be impacted somewhat by the changes in Ed Code and the legal requirements. For example, one of the things that we revised on the policy before, sorry, I have to find it, thank you. Before the meeting today was with non-district sponsored trips. There's been some questions around how you're allowed to encourage students to join those. Those are like private tour companies, which is often what we've used to travel to DC and sometimes to go abroad. We use private tour companies like trips that might go to Paris or things like that. And Ed Code requires that you're not allowed to recruit for those, solicit students to participate during the school day. That's actually been in place for a while, but really how I've had this work in other systems, and I know Dr. Gonzalez can kind of share her experience as well, is that there's many other opportunities that you can inform students and families about these wonderful opportunities, and they've never really been inhibited from what I've seen in any of my other experiences, and I know Dr. Gonzalez has had the same experience. Also, one of the things that we wanted to clarify is that while you can't solicit, that's prohibited by Ed Code, you can still meet during non-work times of the day or in non-student times of the day, like at lunch, for example, or right after school or before school, to plan the activities.
And that's something that could be done with the students, right?
Absolutely.
So people who have already signed up for the trips could meet teachers, students, anybody interested.
Absolutely,
Could be
yeah.
meeting during those times.
Right, it's just, the ed code just bans solicitation. You just can't recruit kids during the school day. So I know we really want to partner to help to brainstorm examples and processes on how we can still get the word out on these wonderful trips, like using Peach Jar, working at PFC meetings, back to school nights, open houses, things like that, so that we can make sure that those trips are still well publicized and everyone's aware, because we know that for many of these trips, they've been going on them for 20, 30 years in Dublin. So we want to make sure that we help to get the words out, but it might just be a little bit different process, but we look forward to going and meeting at each of the school sites to really hear how can we help to overcome any of those burdens, and that we can share the best practices across sites, and really partner together to make sure that all the wonderful things that we're doing for kids continues going forward. And we're very committed to that. But I know that's where a lot of the questions have stemmed from. And we've tried to make where we were very fortunate to get some feedback based on the policy from what we heard. And we did make some of those changes to this policy between the last meeting and this meeting. I know this process was probably frustrating for many people, and I know we could definitely improve on the process and how we work to roll these out. The hurry on this one was we really were trying to make sure that we were clarifying because there was so much confusion out there, and we were hearing a lot of very frustrated. So we wanted to get a clean copy of the policy, and then we'll definitely work to continue to implement it. And I'm confident that we can overcome any challenges that our teachers will face.
I have a question. So it sounds like the policy is presented, but the ARs have not yet been written. And so am I to understand then that would be a collaborative process? Or?
So the AR has been drafted so far, as has been a field trip packet, but it's certainly up for interpretation and further editing, because one of the things we're trying to do is make sure we've got the policy in place, because the policy is really the laws and the procedures that we have to follow, and then how we do that is what's part of our administrative regulation.
And so would there be an opportunity for teachers and staff to weigh in prior to administrative regulations becoming final? Is that what you guys are saying?
Yes.
So to weigh in on the packet and on the ARs to give input in terms of implementing the policy?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, I keep going over this policy, and I struggle with it. And it's called the school-sponsored trip policy, yet we have an entire section on non-school sponsored trip. Why don't we remove that and just make that a separate policy?
So I think the reason that it's in there is to clarify that if anybody is doing something that is non-school sponsored, that there are really clear rules as far as ed code as to why they can't be doing specific components. And I think that key piece of solicitation and fundraising, particularly during the school day, is a component we need to call out.
Then why don't we call it school-sponsored and non-school sponsored policy? I mean, because, your title doesn't, what you have in there doesn't match up to your title, in my opinion.
I think that would be a fine change.
Easy to change the title.
School-sponsored, non-school.
Yeah, and I still think,
You could clarify it.
I'm struggling with, if people really truly understand the difference between them. And I don't know how we make that clear, but I think we have to find a way to make it clear to people what the difference is. And, I saw that we put in there, I was very glad to see that school-sponsored trip teachers don't have to pay.
Right, absolutely.
But I think some of these trips that we've taken in the past are probably, to the average person, they're thinking they're school-sponsored, but then when you really look at it, it's not. My guess is, probably the band trips are probably,
It'd be school-sponsored. I think from, at least what I'm aware of with the band trips, I think they're all school-sponsored.
Okay, I'll tell you, me personally, I thought that was a gray area. So I'm reading the policy and still don't understand which ones are.
The way I sort it out in my head is school-sponsored means if the student can't pay, that the district steps in and pays. So a band student who is prepared to march wherever those bands go to do their marching will not will not have to stay home because he or she doesn't have the funds. They fundraise and they do donations, but if there is a student who cannot go, then the district steps in and pays. Whereas on the, for example, some of the, out of, like the Washington DC trip, that is not a case where if somebody wanted to go but didn't fundraise or couldn't afford it, that the district would step in and say, we will pay for anybody who wants to go, even if they can't afford to go. And that's sort of how I see them as splitting, but I don't know if that's correct or not.
That's one component of what
just
different
one
That's
component?
correct. I think to Mr. Cunningham's point, it'd be great to provide like a clear checklist, something that teachers and staff can go through to say, is this a school-sponsored trip? Is it a non-school-sponsored
It's a
trip?
really good idea.
And maybe we have a process where people could actually submit it so they know ahead of
Absolutely.
time. Because, nothing's worse than, you get something going and then, you can't do this, you can't do that. And
Right.
one of the complaints I hear is, well, at this spot, these rules apply. And I know there's one of the reasons we're doing this, right?
Correct.
These rules apply. So we need to have some type of clearinghouse where the trip is either a school-sponsored one or a non-school sponsored, and they know up front, so they know what rules we're working under.
Right. No, I agree. I think that'll be, and that'll be important feedback. As we go out and meet to the sites, I would love to hear what are some of the examples of where they've had those inconsistencies, because that's really what we want to clear up with the field trip packet, is, really get clear regulations so everyone knows, hey, this is the process. These are what the steps you need to take so that there's not differing steps at different schools, because it should be very clear to everyone, and we want to make that ease present.
And maybe what we can do is we don't have a speaker.
We do.
Okay,
And
then let's
my
have the speaker.
apologies, I should
Let's
have
the
said that
speaker.
earlier.
I thought
I just tucked it in here and then I didn't say anything, so thank you for asking. We do have a speaker. We have Jean Josie. We have one speaker on this.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, I'm very supportive of such a policy and administrative regulations. I think they are definitely needed, given the confusion that even some board members have about school-sponsored, non-school-sponsored, what are our plans, what are our policies. I have a concern with the school-sponsored trips section, number 6, where it says duration of trips. And it says extended day school-sponsored trips shall allow no more than 2 days out of class for non-academic trips. And then the examples given are athletics, band, choir, et cetera.
That's an old version.
Yeah, I
I
think
believe it
it's-
only says athletics.
Version I just picked up.
Okay, then my apologies. That's an old version.
The only red
spec-
change is on the page ahead of that. Is that not
Yeah,
correct?
so I apologize. We were rushing this afternoon to get this last section in based on feedback from other sources. We must have pulled the last version and updated the second to the last version and not the last one. It should not say band, choir, et cetera, and there's also a segment. So actually, if we use the one that we pull up online, and if we add the red section to that, that should be the correct version.
We apologize for that.
Okay, so my
Definitely
concern may be okay, maybe not. So let me just say what
Go
my
ahead.
issue was. If you're using band as an example of a non-academic, we're not.
We took it out.
Awesome. Since that's an actual class instead of an extracurricular.
Yep.
All good. And then to Mr. Cunningham's point about band trips and whether they're school-sponsored or non-school sponsored, I believe we have some that are and some that aren't, based on the definition that you've just said. So that may need to be a case-by-case issue. Certainly, the middle school Disneyland trips that have been taken would clearly fall into the category of school-sponsored, in such as that every child can go. And that if they cannot, and the way they're being fundraised for, if a student cannot pay, then that cost would be picked up. However, trips like Carnegie Hall and Ireland, those have been done, the high school trips, those have been done in such a way that if you cannot pay, you cannot go. So those would be, the way I'm reading it, falling into the category of non-school sponsored trips, and they're run sort of by a tour company. I mean, we administer it at the high school, but they're run and organized by another company, so that might be something
that's a good point.
Worth looking into.
Yeah, so that's very helpful, because, and it's very possible, thank you, that even something tied to a class could fall under either or. For example, often fringe classes will go to Paris. We'll take like an optional Paris trip that's not tied to their grade. It's totally optional. The kids can pay, and they often will go over spring break. And that's would be a non-school sponsored trip because they're going off versus they might go to a French restaurant in town or in San Francisco, and maybe that's for them to practice their French, and everybody's going to go, and they get a bus and they all ride together. That would be a school-sponsored trip that we would provide the funding for.
So I think what I'm hearing is you're going to go site by site, you're going to find out what field trips we have, and you're going to work it out regardless of however it's categorized. And there's going to be consistency between both middle schools and the high school and even the elementary schools in terms of the forms that are used and the processes that are in place. And so everybody's going to be consistent. And then once the AR is implemented with input from the school sites, everybody will have the same exact information. And when you do the training, it will be with the administrators and teachers in the same room. So nobody's having a different experience.
Correct. And actually, I would really love to see these field trips go to the online field trips with the chalk schools that we just recently, the board passed to automate our forms so that actually it's all automated and routed, and so that nothing gets lost in the field trip slips and processes a packet. It's very clear and easy to work through. I'd love to see that be used.
Okay.
So I'm going to have one more suggestion, and then we can vote, I guess. Let's just make sure that we do a thorough job of who gets invited to these. And I would prefer to see group meetings, not one-on-one meetings, just because I think it helps. But, the leadership teachers, the history teachers that do the trips. I mean, I know they're doing it at the high school, the band, and just make sure those people are included when it comes to the AR. Yeah. And I hope people understand the difference between the AR and the board policy. I mean, the board policy really is the law, and
making sure we don't get sued,
right?
And protecting
protects us if we do get sued.
Protects us, and I think it's also intended to protect our teachers.
Yeah,
it really is. Actually, this gives, what I've found is whenever you've had clarity around these, it gives the most protection to teachers because it clarifies when, it's really part of their job duties and when it's not, and it really gives them a lot more freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've struggled with how we've gotten here, but I think I'm finally there. But I'm going to really hope that from this process that we kind of look at these things and maybe figure out, because some of them, they're policies you have to have, and that's no. But maybe we can take a look at which ones do we call people in earlier so we can avoid some of the angst that our teachers had, and still get to the same thing. We're still going to have probably the same rules, but it's a lot easier to have the rules if people feel like they've been included in the process. So
absolutely, we definitely acknowledge the process has been far from perfect, and we hope we can continue to work on the process and improve it going forward.
And another way that we're talking about making this easier in the future, there's two components that haven't been shared. First of all, we're going to put everything online. So there's a current copy of everything in one location that we can direct all of our administrators and all of our teachers back to. That way, if something needs an edit, it will be edited in one location where everyone can access it. So we think that'll be helpful. The other thing that we're going to be working on once we've settled on all of our forms is to have fillable PDFs, which we believe will make it a whole lot easier for our staff as well to be able to go in and put the information in rather than needing to print things out and handwrite them. So we're hoping that will expedite it and make consistency much easier for all of them.
And are we going to have who's going to be the arbiter of disputes? So a teacher goes to their principal and...
Oh, sure.
So are we going to have a process in there that somebody is the final...
I've always had it be through the Ed Services
Perfect.
Division, yes.
I just want to know who they're going to yell at, so.
Yeah, and as we kind of clarify roles, that we'll make sure that they know, we'll have a point person who they can also just call and ask questions to, because sometimes I find that that's been the easiest way to get these, like early, whenever they're thinking about a trip, hey, this is what I'm thinking. It saves a lot of trouble later.
And just a reminder, I'll chime in. You recall approving chalk schools a few weeks ago. That system has in it, and a number of districts have utilized it for this purpose, field trips. It'll all be online, the entire packet. It'll have workflow. It'll generate a list of who's completed the packet, who hasn't, and it's all fillable online. It's pretty seamless.
Great. All right.
Okay.
I move we approve Board Policy 6153, item 16 on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you. We are now going to move on to our action items. We have a public hearing on facilities, the naming of E5. So the purpose of this item is for the board to conduct a public hearing to see if anybody wants to give input on the naming of E5. And I'm going to open the public hearing, and we do have one speaker. So I'm going to hit the gavel and open the public hearing at 6:51, and I will call up our speaker. This is Steve Menier, and he also served on the naming committee and was here, as you recall, last time to help present this item. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. I'll make this really simple. I'm in favor of Virginia Bennett being the name. That's it. If you have any questions about the process, please feel free to ask me later on or at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. I wanted the public record to actually show that somebody came up and supported this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers, I will now close the public hearing at 6:52. And now I will open it up for discussion among the board. Are there any clarifying questions? I have a couple, actually, so, but does anyone else have one?
Clarify away.
So, we had talked a little bit about the history of how we name our schools after people, yes? So that's something that we've done. And is that something that, I don't know if I can ask this, did the naming committee talk about, if it was that important to keep that, tradition? Did the naming committee talk about, if and when the right time to do something else might be?
So I think we're going to tag team it together, Mr. Menier and I. Yes, we actually did talk about that a bit in the committee, and I think the reason that you see the variety of names before you this evening is there was some discussion about moving away from the tradition that we had of naming our schools after individuals. I think at the end of that process, the name Virginia Bennett was so strongly supported that it in fact did become the #1 choice within the committee. I don't know if you want to share something else.
Well, the other thing, the team leaders, the facilitators are very good about stating what the new policy is or what the standard policy is, which gives us a whole range of options. So we looked at the whole range of options. And I think the committee came up with a number of considerations about why this particular circumstance, especially the 150th anniversary, makes that this is a good idea for this particular school.
Okay. And is there anything else that's going to be named after Virginia Bennett coming up that we might be aware of? And what might that be?
I have heard, I don't know if Mr. Cunningham has more information than I do. I have heard that the library, that the city was.
A room in the library is what
A room in the library.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We heard the same discussion, and so we did call the city and clarify. In fact, a meeting room at the library is going to be named Virginia Bennett. And the reason that the committee continued to bring it forward is, I think, in response to some of the board's concern that if one Googled it, that there would be confusion because another facility is named. The library is still has its original name. They have chosen to name a meeting room.
It's actually a little bit larger than that. It's a technology room. So Virginia Bennett was famous for trying to bring technology into the libraries. So this is not just a meeting room, but this is a technology room where they're going to have a wall full of video and they're going to have computer linkages. So it's actually kind of a STEM-related activity that the library is pushing, as well as being a city facility.
Okay.
I just had a question. I'm not sure the history of how we named Amador. Is Amador named after the Valley Amador or the
Jose Maria?
Yeah, okay.
Jose Maria.
Jose Maria. So it was named after a person.
It was named after a person and a school.
Okay. Exactly.
Sorry.
One of my biggest complaints.
Okay. So every school, with the exception of Dublin L and Dublin High School,
Yeah.
is a person. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I believe that is
Dublin High
correct.
School and Dublin L are the only two that aren't named after.
Okay.
And
Right.
Valley High. And
Oh, and Valley High.
Valley High. Yeah.
So out of the 11
11, almost 12. This will be 12. Yeah. Yeah.
So just a point of clarification, many of the schools were named when it was the Murray School District. And under the Murray School District, there was a different policy. So the policy that you have is different and is more inclusive.
Oh, okay. Okay. What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I'm not following you. So I'm looking at.
So rumor has it that the Murray School District school naming policy was that the schools be named after a trustee. There's a common misperception that Murray School District schools were named after pioneers, while in fact the school district policy was just to name them after trustees.
Okay.
So up until the start of the Dublin Unified School District, the old policy was in play for the Murray School District.
Okay.
It just so happens that Dublin being a small town, when you only had a couple hundred people, everybody that they named a school after wound up being a pioneer anyway.
Okay. Okay, great. And so then just to clarify, so the 3 names that are put forward, they're all names that the naming committee thought were potential school names and worthy of being a school and named a school in our district. Is that right?
They were in fact the top 3. I believe 19 that we voted on, these are the top 3 in ranked order.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any comments on this, or you want to?
I would prefer not to name 2 things in the city after the same person. I mean, I love the idea that we named our school after people, but you're going to have a technology room, which is very appropriate for Virginia Bennett. You know how I felt about Amador being named Amador because it causes confusion. And so, I mean, if I had my preference after learning that, it would be Cottonwood Creek.
I also actually like the name Cottonwood Creek. I like the tradition of naming after people, but I also feel like we have we have a couple schools coming up, and if we're, it might be okay to, I like that it names it after a geographical feature that's part of the school site, and very personal. I share your concern about the room at the library, and also if we name the school first, if that would in any way discourage the naming of the room at the library, and that would be so unfortunate, I think. And so that, that's a concern of mine. I also like the name Cottonwood Creek. Other people want to chime in?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Joe.
I said I like it.
That's his comment. He likes it.
Okay. Mr. Sherrier, can I ask, what do you think?
I kind of like them both. If we did do Virginia S., Bennett, I would really think it would be better to lose the S and just go Virginia Bennett. I think it sounds a little easier for everybody to say. But Cottonwood Creek, when I first read these, was the one that kind of leapt off the page as something that sounds unique to the area. And I think, there's not a lot. I mean, that based on where it is, yeah, it's a tough one. I guess I would lean slightly to Cottonwood Creek, but I could easily be swayed.
Well, I don't think we can go wrong because the committee came up with all of the names, and I think when we did name Amador, I can remember going through that process and feeling like I didn't want to undermine the committee's top choice, but it has created some confusion, so I sort of have to agree with my colleagues and thinking naming 2 places after 1 person is probably not the best choice since we have other great choices that the committee came up with, and I love the name Cottonwood Creek and what it represents too, so I would be probably more supportive of that.
Ms. Coe, do you want to chime in?
I don't have any strong leanings toward either, but just hearing what we had to say about the confusion with 2 things being named after 1 person, that's definitely something to consider. But I guess just whichever has more significance to Dublin or better represents Dublin, I'd say that's the better pick, but that's a valid point with having two places named after the same person.
I move that we name E5 Cottonwood Creek.
I second.
Are we actually deciding right now? Or?
We are
Well,
deciding right
Dan
now.
moved.
Good.
Yeah.
No, I
Do you
mean-
want to make some, this is it. This would be it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was we have the second hearing and then we come back for the decision.
This is the second of two.
Yep.
And so, did you want to make other comments before that, or?
And would you say it's Cottonwood Creek School?
Cottonwood Creek School.
Elementary school.
No,
Right.
school.
Oh,
School. Cottonwood Creek
Okay.
School, not elementary
Because
school.
it's not elementary,
That's
that's
right.
right.
Yeah, just making sure. Okay.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
No,
And I seconded. Did you want to make other comments, or did I? No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes 4-1 with also
They like the name
Lisa
Bennett,
Coe.
but Bennett.
Yeah, with also.
Bennett
yeah.
School. but-
Okay. All right, thank you guys so much for your work on that. Really appreciate it.
I thought the committee liked all the names they chose.
Okay.
I guess not.
Moving on, items for future consideration. Are there any, Ms. Coe, do you have any matters?
I have no matters to introduce.
Okay, Mr. Sherrier.
No matters at this time.
Okay, Mr. Giannini. Mr. Cunningham.
I'm going to break the streak again.
Okay.
This will be quick, though. One of the things that came up at the Fallon PFC had to do with the high school and parking and how, it's challenged. We talked, and Michelle McDonald's on the parking committee, and she talked about it. And one of the things that came up was possibly a way to solve some of that problem would be to further restrict our open campus policy for lunch to no longer having sophomores be able to, so freshmen and sophomore both. And I would like to have that conversation because the parking is an issue, especially in the neighborhood, and I used to live in that neighborhood, and so I kind of understand it. And the reason the thought of sophomores came up with is because they are the one group that we can guarantee only one kid per car. And, just go to the high school. I was there last week dropping Holly off, and I was leaving, and I saw 15 cars come in, and 14 of them had one child in it. And that's part of the problem. So, I know they're doing other things to do, but I would like to maybe have us address that issue, and then maybe have the staff come back and talk about what some of the problems are going to be, such as how do we feed them, what are some of the things we can do, because I know it's not as easy as saying sophomores aren't allowed off either.
Because what if they go in a car with a junior?
Right. So I know there's some issues, but I think it's a good conversation what we could have, and perhaps
I agree.
Start to be proactive on the problem. So
Do we have 3 people wanting to bring it back? Yeah?
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so
That's it.
Would you like that? I know you'd requested an update from the committee as a whole, like have the update as committee as a whole, and then
I
have
think
this
I
as a
think an
side
update
discussion?
from the committee, but also then
This is a specific discussion?
Yeah, this, how do we, we need to start taking some action, and I think that, and maybe they have some other things that we can do, but I think we got to start doing something because that school continues to grow, and we're going to have the same issue, wherever we put the second. Future, thank you, the future high school space, right? So.
No, that's helpful.
It does seem like it would be part of that committee conversation too, though, no?
Well, I mean, that could be a specific component, but
Right.
definitely, we still go give the over.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Nothing.
Okay, and I have no matters. Dr. Boozer?
None at this
No.
time.
Okay, so we're going to look at the calendar of meetings and events. Looks like here at the front, we have our PFC meetings that we've signed up for. I think those are going really well.
Now, I heard that the one on the 22nd, I was still supposed to go to that, seeing that the high school's already been visited by.
I think,
Oh, yeah, because it's supposed
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing multiple.
Okay,
meetings.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think they always appreciate, because I know some of the ones that we've been to before, and I think they appreciate.
a lot of times it'll be different people,
Okay.
or we might
Different
have
questions.
different questions, or,
What time is our meeting on the 11th? 4 to 6. Okay, so you can make that. I was just looking, I was just looking.
Yeah, I believe so. It does start early.
Okay.
And the Amador one on the 25th, Dan, were you going to that? You've been going to Amador, right?
Yeah, I can go to the one.
Well, I mean, I'll go. I just, I see,
We can do it the Dan and Dan show. And
I
then
see
can-
no names there.
I don't see anybody listed there, so.
Because we have the retiree event that night too, from 4 to 6.
Oh.
But that'll work, 4 to 6,
Absolutely.
and then.
Yeah, we'll go.
and then-
I'll go with you, Dan. That'd be good.
Yeah.
And then they can say Dan, we'll both say yes, and they'll say Dan C, and we'll say yes, and we'll really confuse them.
Wait, May 20.
Oh, that's the wrong date.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because Monday's May 22nd.
Is that Memorial Day?
Hold on. May 25th is.
Oh, yeah, that.
No, that is not
May
Memorial Day.
25th
That's a
is
Thursday. That's a
Oh.
Thursday, so that is a
That should be
typo.
Thursday, May 25th, right?
Okay. That
So we'll
is the
put
same
down
as the retirement and.
Dan and Dan.
Dan and Dan. Mm-hmm.
Yep, the
Okay.
Dan and Dan show.
Okay.
On
And then,
on the regular calendar, I had a question.
Sure.
If you go down to the 26th,
of,
May.
May, oh, of course, sorry.
It shows the facilities meeting, I believe, no, it doesn't. I must have read the wrong.
22nd? I see a facilities meeting on the 22nd.
I must have misread that the other night.
Have that.
Don't pay any attention to me.
On this Friday, we have the Superintendent's Council Luncheon.
Yep.
Has everybody RSVP'd to that?
I don't know if I've RSVP'd. Who are you supposed to RSVP to?
Who's coming? You can RSVP to me.
I will be there.
I will be
There,
there.
you will be there. Mr. Sherry or Mr. Giannini, are you able to make it? It's a luncheon on Friday. No? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, you can let me know. You can RSVP to me, and I'll make sure that they know we're coming.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to make that.
Okay?
And I wanted everyone to also know on that Thursday, May 25th, which is not yet on the calendar, because we see the save the date, I'll have to follow up to make sure that we got all the details, but that's the TV 30s Outstanding High School Awards event. It's going to be that evening. I believe it starts at 7, but I believe that we're going to be getting some honors at that.
Okay.
Cool. So just wanted to make sure everybody is aware.
We've never been invited to that, so.
Oh,
that would be-
yes, they kindly reached out and invited.
That's
There,
great.
you've now been invited.
What time is it at? 7?
7.
I have it at 7, so I'll find out more details.
Oh, okay. Where is that? Do you know?
It's at the Robert Livermore Community Center from 7 to 9.
Great.
Okay. Is there anything else on the calendar that folks want to discuss? Anything to add? No? Okay. All right. So moving on.
I did. Sorry, one last thing. Tomorrow night is the Make a Difference Awards from 7 to 8:30 in the DHS Student Union.
And we also did just receive the middle college graduation, and unfortunately, it's at the same time as Valley.
Yeah.
Oh.
You've got to be joking me.
Yeah.
Goodness.
It is.
I cannot believe they did that.
Yeah, so we have a conflict there, but
Okay.
unfortunately.
I was just looking, are the middle school band ceremony, the like spring concerts, are they on here?
I don't see them.
I haven't seen them, but
Okay.
Jackie and I can work to update it.
Okay. If I can figure out when they are, I can send the dates to you. But
Oh, that'd be great.
Did you say middle school concert?
I did, yeah.
On the
It's on-
17th, there's a Fallon Spring concert.
Fallon Spring Concert, okay.
Oh, great. Oh, yes, I
Excellent.
do see it.
But I don't
Okay,
see the.
and then I don't see Wells.
I don't see Wells.
So that will be somewhere else or another, but that's great. So Fallon's already on there and we'll get Wells on there too.
And then, don't forget, I know Michelle McDonald would love everyone to attend on the 20th, the 150th anniversary of
Yes.
Murray School District.
Right, and that's going to be at Double Heritage Park. I know a lot of students have been putting together
Yep.
film projects and drama and art, so I can't wait to see them. A lot of
I
our students have been
delegate assembly
participating in
that day
that.
Sacramento.
I'll take pictures for you.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. All right. So then, moving on, instead of adjourning the meeting completely, we are going to go back into closed session. So I'm going to take a motion to go back into closed session. We will not have any business to report. So we will note the time that we adjourn, and we will not be coming back in here this evening. So can I get a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I move we adjourn to closed session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We'll go into closed session and maybe take a few minute bathroom break on the way.